So we're recording
All right.
just like that.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Hi, Tabitha, Reese. Hi, Mom. So, gotta give my shout outs.
David McNeilly, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Doing really well.
Yeah. What's new? It's been a while since you've been on. I don't even remember what episode that was. That was a while ago.
It was May of 22, so it's been over about a year and a half.
Wow. That's so crazy.
So lots of things. I retired from football.
Wow.
From playing football. I didn't play this year, but I got recruited to be the head football coach for DeWitt 8th grade football team.
Oh, very cool.
So we're in the middle. We got 2 more games left. So that's where I get the bookie to practice after this.
Oh, nice.
So actually, I was super proud of those boys this last Wednesday. One of my themes for the year was coming into the year was overcoming adversity.
Oh, cool.
Because 8th grade's full of challenges, and I'm like, what's one thing that we could focus on? And so I'm really like, their mindset is really important. Like make sure that we have the right mindset in situations. So one of the things I've been preaching on is overcoming adversity. Well, this last week we were playing Holt, and at halftime score was 24-6. Bad guys.
Oof.
Holt. And but we ended up winning 38-30 in the last minute of the game.
Wow.
So they just, they kept their poise. Very proud of them. Very proud of them. So that was a lot of fun. This week we have Waverly coming up.
That's going to be a tough one.
Very tough one. So, but I think they're motivated because they lost to them last year. So, and it was their only loss last year. So this year we'll see what happens. But
that's cool. So have you noticed a difference in, since you started teaching the mindset, like having overcoming adversity, have you noticed a change in the way they perform and the way their mindset is during games?
I think so. Granted, our first practice to start the season was the second time I had ever met 98% of those boys. So I had no experience with them last year. I had only heard stories from some things last year. And so but my experience from beginning to end, I think there's been they've grown in that. And part of that is, I think it's, there's a line in Remember the Titans, the movie Remember the Titans, where he says attitude reflects leadership, captain. And I really feel like that's important. So it's, as long as I and the staff, we stay calm, stay focused. I think they'll be fine. And that's what happened. Like the score at halftime really didn't reflect really what was going on in the game. It was kind of a couple of, they got a couple of big plays on us. One of them was an onside recovery, which is a complete, changes the thing. But we just went over to halftime and they were running up the middle on us a little bit. And, so at halftime, I basically said, hey guys, it's this drill. They're just winning this drill that we do every night in practice. And as long as we win this, the second half, we'll be fine. And they did. The switch flipped and they went out and just dominated the rest of the game. Holt scored 6 points. We scored 32.
Wow.
So
that's wild.
Yeah, it was a very competitive and interesting game coming down the stretch.
I think it's really cool for young people, especially young men, to have a positive influence and somebody who's willing to tell them or teach them how to have the right kind of mindset. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely important for a young person to have that guidance. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure for those young men, it's significant.
Right. There's where did I learn this from? I forget where I learned this from, but I learned this about 6-7 years ago, maybe 8. Every result comes from an action. Every action comes from an emotion. Every emotion comes from a thought. And if you want to change your results, you got to go to the beginning of that process, to the thoughts. Well, for me growing up, and for most people, everybody tries to change the action. And that's good, but the action doesn't change unless the thought changes. And sometimes people are naturally, they naturally fix the thought or whatever is going on behind that. But as a mentor, if you're in any sort of leadership or mentorship, you've got to get to the thought. Like that's the most effective and productive way to get a different result.
Right.
And so mindset, that's why I chose kind of mindset as like, here's what we're going to focus on. And so, mindset, I think, what are the thoughts that you're having here? for a linebacker that's supposed to aggressively attack on the run, and my linebackers aren't, what do? You go to the linebackers like, hey, this is the thought you need to have. As soon as you see this, you've got to have this thought of go attack. I see this, I go.
Right.
And that's, just starting at the thought brings about the different result. So I think that's a powerful thing to, even just in our world, we often just overlook what our thoughts and emotions have the influence that has on our results, so go attack those and everything else will take care of itself.
Right. And then you can apply that to everything in life.
Correct.
I mean, they don't have to just apply it to the field. They apply it to school and their families, their relationships, literally everything.
Right. Relationships is a good one. If you're struggling in your marriage, like, what's the thought I need to change? Sometimes it's like, well, I just don't like this person. Well, why? Okay. What's the thought? What are you thinking about this person all the time?
How can you change that?
He leaves the toothpaste, on the counter every time. Okay. Well, so that's the thought. How do we fix that thought? How do we help him help you fix that thought? It's always him. But yes, it applies in every situation in life, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see yourself doing this continuously, or you just giving it a one season try?
Right now, it's a 1 year rental,
okay,
so to speak. There were some situations I think that kind of came about with this team, and at the time, there wasn't anybody that was wanting to jump into the head spot. And I know one of the people I know a couple of people on the board that were like, oh, let's see if, an outside guy wants to take it. I know the guy that, would be interested. Somebody has to be passionate about football, doesn't mind doing it for free, and would work well with young people. And so apparently he thought of me and thought I'd be good at all that. So
very cool.
We got 2 more weeks to find out if that's true or not.
What kind of impact has it had on you?
Man, that's a great question. It has given me a lot of what I would say hope for the future. A lot of people, I don't know if you remember, I think you're a millennial too. Mm-hmm. Like if you rewind 10, 12, 15 years, like everybody was down on the millennials. Oh, the millennials this, all the millennials this. Oh, everybody's terrible. And I think everybody, the older generations always think that about younger generations, but these kids are smarter than I was and wiser even than I was at 8th grade. And part of that is technology. And we think of technology often for young people as a detriment, but I think there's some positives to it as well. And, I see a lot of understanding of the world in these kids that I didn't have till 20s or 30s.
Right.
That these kids have a decent grasp on in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So, it gives me a lot of hope. It's given me a lot of joy to just be involved in the community, to work with these young people and, see what they can do. And I hope that they take away from me an inspiration to be able to know that I can do anything I choose to put my mind to.
That's important.
Right.
That's so important for anybody listening. Like if there's something you want to do, you just got to try. Just take the one step forward. Maybe do some research. You literally have the power of like the world at your hand.
Right.
You can learn anything.
It's amazing. And I wish we were like the amount of entrepreneurship, thought, leadership, books, information that's out there is astounding. Mm-hmm. Like you could literally pick up, well, even just to be a handyman. Like I'm remodeling some of the stuff in my house right now. Like, well, if I don't know what to do, we're YouTube it, right? Yeah, I can't tell you how to tell that. Oh, okay, that's how you do that. Boom, done.
Right.
Whereas even 10 years ago, I probably couldn't even do that.
Right. That's how I learned how to do a podcast.
Yeah.
It was just researching, like, how does Joe Rogan do it? How does this person do it? How does that person do it? Oh, I like the way they did it. I'm going to apply that.
Yeah. If you ever become Joe Rogan, don't forget your roots.
Never will.
But no, you can do anything you put your mind to be, and that's never been more true. I think the world puts too much negativity out there.
Yeah.
Especially the media. The media thrives on negativity.
Yeah.
You have to hate the other party. You have to hate, these people, or not like those, or it's just so much negativity.
There definitely is, but I almost feel like we're entering the stage where people are wanting some sort of unity, amongst each other. Like I went to RFK's rally yesterday. And that's one thing that he talked a lot about was like people are tired. People are tired of like the divisiveness, because that was one thing that Biden was supposed to be. He was supposed to be that one president that was going to unite everybody. And let's admit it, like we're not united as a country whatsoever right now.
Well, I think I agree that that's what people are hungry for. I don't think the parties are ever going to allow that to happen.
No, absolutely not. I mean, because it's so entrenched into this dog eat dog world. But it's not just that. It's also like amongst the common like middle class. We're on strike right now, and that's one thing that the UAW president Sean Fain is talking a lot about is uniting, and we're all united together right now on strike, and for a fight for a better living, a better wage, better way of life. And that's one thing a lot of people are tired of. They're tired of the corporate greed, the people taking advantage of us, politicians, CEOs. You know, everybody just wants to be united. They want to live a good life.
And you know, I think a lot of those people at the top are so motivated by money.
Oh yeah.
But you know, you got people like yourself and myself, like we just want to have a quality life with family, be able to do things and impact others.
Right.
And yeah, so it kind of it's an interesting time, but I think you're right. I think there's so much positive in the world right now that we don't know or don't see.
It's just drowned out.
It's not promoted for sure.
Right.
But you look around and you can see it just about anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, specifically here in Lansing. That's one thing I think is really cool about Lansing is everybody's supportive of everybody. And I mean, we have like the 517 Living Facebook page, which literally helps connect a whole community, and everybody's so supportive of each other on there. And then you have all these businesses who help other businesses. Like, I don't know if you know Travis from Saddleback.
I'm aware of who he is. Yeah.
They help out other businesses that are struggling, that are their like local competition. They helped out Capital City Barbecue. They helped promote her business when she was struggling last year. She was on the podcast too, which was really cool. But you know, so you have like all these different people in our community that are willing to help and support each other's business. It's pretty cool.
You know, one of the stories that I read in high school or maybe early on in my life had a big impact on my mindset. Was I read about it was a story years ago I think it was a guy that owned several lumber yards, and one of his proteges or mentees that he brought up in the business, you know, decided to leave and start his own business, and something happened and he lost, like he was, you know, a few years into it, and he lost the fire happened, lost all of his supply, and it was going to really have a big detriment on his business. And his old boss shows up and says, "Hey, whatever you need, I'll take care of, you know, come get us. We'll work through this and figure it out for you."
Wow.
And it made, you know, he's like, "Well, why?" He goes, "Well," he's like, "I'm your competitor. You can put your competitor out of business." He goes, "Yes, but you deserve an opportunity, and you know, this world needs to see something like that." And so that always had an impact on me of like, hey, even if it's a competitor, you don't have to, you know,
it's not a dog world.
Throw them under the bus, etc.
Right.
So that's when, you know, I try to, you know, in my business, try not to throw other advisors under the bus. I may pick apart their
process,
their process or their decision making, the things that they've done, but try not to attack the person. And I think that's just should just be common knowledge or common practice. You know, don't attack the person unless you absolutely have to.
Right.
Attack the thought, attack the process, attack whatever might be wrong. But you know, let's not attack each other.
Well, I mean, their process should, if it's the right process, it should be able to hold up to scrutiny. And if it can't, then it's not correct.
Right.
Yeah. That's one thing though that I love about Lansing though, is that everybody's generally pretty supportive of each other. And I mean, the business owners are incredible. Sorry, I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode. I get random calls sometimes from there's one guy who wants to do the podcast and he keeps calling me, and I'm like, I need to call him back. But yeah, so you mentioned your business. How's that going?
Going really well. Going really well. Growing. Probably gonna, if everything goes well toward the end of the year, have my best year ever, and set next year up for a very good year as well.
Very cool.
So it's growing, and I like that. It's not as tough. If you don't know anything about being a financial advisor, if 100 advisors start today, 11 of them will be in business a year from now, and 7 of them will be in business 5 years from now.
Wow.
That's how tough it is. So I'm going into my 12th year here, so I'm very fortunate for that. And it's, really starting to it's like a giant snowball. Tough to get it going, but once it's going, you just keep working at it, and it grows bigger and bigger. So it's a lot of fun, helping a lot of people. And I was able to take a little bit more time off this last summer than normal, and do some fun things with my family, my daughter, my wife. We had some family from out of town come in, and just do a lot of really cool things. So
very cool. Do you have employees working for you?
Paid by me directly, no, but I have an assistant that I share with a couple of people.
Okay.
And probably by the end of next year, we'll have hire somebody full time to work with me. For me only. Okay. At least that's the goal. So, but yeah, that's the plan.
You have a place in Holt, right?
Actually, so like shortly after I was on the podcast last time, we merged so that our office in Holt merged with an office downtown Lansing called Centennial Group. Okay. It was it's been around for almost 60 years.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
The guy that started Castle left Centennial Group to start Castle. And then we merged back with the idea of somebody needs to take over when the owner Centennial retires. And so we're kind of getting that set up. And
so is that a locally owned Centennial?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that firm's been around for, like I said, almost 60 years. He bought it from the guy that owns it now, bought it from somebody in the 90s. I think it was the original owner or second owner. Okay. So it's got a really strong name in the area.
Right. So are you a branch of Centennial?
I am an advisor that has a relationship with Centennial. The way it works with me is technically the IRS sees me as my own entity. Okay. But everything, my relationship with Centennial is they provide certain things, and then I brand everything Centennial Group. And so I'm a 1099 contractor with them essentially.
Oh, okay.
But my goal is to, at some point run. I was the vice president of business planning over at Castle, so take over those responsibilities at Centennial Group as well at some point.
Very cool. So, and obviously, has that brought more success since you guys merged?
Yeah. So a large part of the growth this year, probably half of it is just organically on my own, but the other half of the growth would be, as a benefit of being part of Centennial.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good. There were some bumps, but it's been a good transition.
Yeah, it's important to have those bumps, I guess.
Yes, bumps. These were a little bit bigger bumps. They're like Michigan potholes in March. Let's put it that way. But no, they've all been good, and as they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So just learn and grow, and continue to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So what else is new?
Nothing else really is new. That's about all the new stuff. So just growing in that. That's quite a bit to take on. So
yeah, that's a lot. And does your wife work too?
She teaches at Lansing Christian. So,
okay.
So my daughter goes to school there. She teaches over there, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, is that a Catholic school or is it?
No, it's Christian. So
Christian.
There's Lansing Catholic.
Okay.
And there's Lansing Christian.
Okay.
2 separate schools. They do have one thing in common that they participate together in, and that is because Lansing Christian doesn't have a football team, if any Lansing Christian students want to participate in football, they have a way to do it. They can go to Lansing Catholic and play.
And they have a good football team, don't they?
They have a very good football team most years.
Wow.
Every so often they have a down year.
Okay.
If you're a private school, you can recruit to your school in high school. So you can, if you see some really good quarterback over in Williamston or, somewhere else, you can be like, hey, come play for us your senior year. Wow. Or something like that. And it's not illegal.
Wow. Have you paid attention to any of this Mel Tucker stuff?
Yes, I have. I have. I kind of I have this thing with like politics and things, situations like that, where I try to not make judgment until I like read the details, as much of the details as I possibly can. So like,
Right.
They try to pass a bill and you hear everybody say, "Oh, this is in the bill." So I go read the bill, or I'll read the, portions of the bill, like just to see what it actually says.
Right. Yeah.
I did that with the, there was the Florida bill. I think it was the Don't Say Gay bill or something like that. I read,
Yeah.
I like hear everybody saying about it. I'm like, I want to go read the bill. What does the actual bill say? That'll tell me what I should think about it.
It's not literally saying gay, right?
Right. Like there's a whole thing, and I don't want to go too deep into that, because we'll go, some half the audience,
they checked out already.
Yeah. but so that's what I would say to people. It's just, I encourage you, don't take, your favorite media sources, words for granted. Just go read it yourself. And oftentimes you'll find out that they're either only half right or mostly wrong on both sides. And it's like, well, it's not that, it's this. And I usually find that it's somewhere in the middle.
Well, generally with the media, they only state what is effective for them and what aligns with their ideas.
Correct.
And that's the problem with the media. I mean, I'm witnessing that firsthand, working for General Motors and then being on strike and seeing the way that the CEO, especially Mary Barra, she is on the board for Disney. Disney owns.
Oh, really?
Disney owns ABC News, all the media outlets.
ESPN.
They own all of them.
Just bought a lot of the Fox stuff.
Yeah. And so when she goes on like these news, when she does these news interviews, like she was interviewed by Michael Strahan, and all of them are just like softball questions, and it's obviously like in her favor, and they don't like acknowledge any of the like demands of the workers. It's all like based on like the corporate greed and the corporate, like,
how do I position myself to look good?
Exactly. And that's what all those interviews were. And even in the interview with Michael Strahan, he was like, I just want to point out Mary Barra is on the board for Disney, and Disney's owned by, or ABC's owned by Disney. And
so he basically just said, we're going to give her favorable treatment.
Exactly. Exactly.
She wouldn't be going on there if she wasn't.
Nope.
And if she did, if she didn't get favorable treatment, she has the ability to fire her.
Right. Exactly.
So
yeah, it's wild. It's crazy. So like, I mean, when you see things that are being tainted in one way, you got to think about it. Like, why are they saying it like this? Like,
what's their motive?
And then why is this other news organization saying it like this? Like, clearly there's some sort of disconnect there.
Right. So since we're going down this trail a little bit, you would enjoy a lady by the name of Whitney Webb. Came across her at the beginning of the summer. She just about a year ago finished writing a 900-page book. It's actually in 2 volumes on Jeffrey Epstein.
Ooh.
Now, she doesn't cover so much all of his crimes there. She does a little bit, but she goes deeper than that. Everybody wants to, hang Jeffrey Epstein, and that wasn't intended. But everybody wants to crucify him, rightfully so, for those things. But it was a lot deeper than that. And she points out, and she goes through and cites every fact that she claims in that book.
Whitney Webb.
And I forget, it's called One Nation Under Blackmail, I think is the book. And she did, I didn't read the book, but I listened to several podcasts that she does, that she, I've listened probably about 10 or 12 hours of her conversation around this book. And basically what it is she goes into like Jeffrey Epstein's network and why he was able to get away with that for so long.
Right.
And basically everybody likes to be, everybody paints Jeffrey Epstein as like this higher echelon guy when he was really just a middle manager of sorts.
Yep.
And she kind of details all his connections and how all the different things that they have internationally and the whole network that they have and the corruption that it has inside our government, other governments, etc. It's a really fascinating read, and it really will open your mind to be like, this is why this is happening. This is why this is happening. She says that the book starts in the 1940s, when the intelligence agencies, this was before the CIA existed, but the precursor to the CIA, was getting in bed with a lot of the not dock workers, but the mafia on the docks in New York City. and how ever since then, the mob and intelligence agencies have been intertwined, and details it throughout history. Its impact on JFK, then how that it came to the rise of Jeffrey Epstein and all of his network, and how that's impacted all the politics, etc. Ever since then. And
Absolutely.
and it's on both sides of the aisle: the Bushes, the Clintons, the
Yep.
Bidens.
Yeah, I mean, because then because that was one thing they talked a lot about was his apartment in New York City was just rigged with cameras everywhere.
Right. And you had Bill Clinton. He had a painting of Bill Clinton in a dress. No offense, but if I found out somebody had a picture of me in a dress somewhere, I'd be like, what do I got to do to get that taken down?
Right.
Not go
right.
visit his house and think it's the most hilarious thing ever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so they would collect all this dirt on people and then use it as a way for blackmail.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we have something on you. Now you have to give me what you want.
Right. And she details Bill Gates's connections on that.
He flew on his plane like 20 some times.
Yes. And even when Bill Gates was called on it, he's like, well, yeah, I met him in like 2009 or 10 or something like that. And she documents how he met him in the 90s.
Wow.
Like all these lies, and just unravels it. And she talks about how it's they use it you talked about corporate greed. They use this network is, it's like, how do I collect the most amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
and use resources to enrich the richer.
Right.
Right.
And they use the poor for it too.
Right. Or just natural resources. It's like, how do I, mine, I think a lot of this push towards the batteries is tied to that, towards electric vehicles, is tied towards a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but
The greed.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, well,
absolutely.
now how do I get people to buy a car every 10 years rather than, cars lasting 20 years, or how do I,
What's funny about that though is I think these car manufacturers are starting to realize that it's not sustainable to have electric vehicles, just only electric vehicles.
right.
I mean, because
Don't
Toyota,
tell GM.
yeah, right. Toyota just announced that they're going to start focusing more on combustion engines. They're not going to be focusing on EVs.
Good, because they make some of the best
Hybrids.
they make some of the best engines.
Yeah. Well, I bought a Toyota. I work at GM.
I drive a Honda. I drive a 2009 Honda. It's paid off. It runs great. It's got 200,000 miles on it, but it runs great.
Yeah.
Why get rid of it?
Right. It's crazy too, and I think that was one of the big pushes for the strike was the fact that these organizations or these corporations, they didn't want the UAW to be under these new battery plants.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford completely stopped production of their plant because the UAW was trying to push for that. And they're like, well, we're not going to continue building if, that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So they just stopped. And one of the things that I think it was Stellantis in the negotiations won was that they have the right to strike, or maybe it was Ford. They have the right to strike over plant closures. So whenever a plant closes, you can strike, and they have to keep you working. And so they won that. And I think Ford realizes like, hey, like this is not sustainable. So if this is UAW, we have to keep this open. They have to be invested into it. And
Wow.
I think they know that it's not going to be that profitable.
I have a hard time. Like California, you have to be 100% electric vehicles. I think it's by 2030 now. And that's just,
Or 2035, something like that. Yeah.
it's an impossible metric. I listened to, there's some guy, there's a guy that owns a company in the area. I think it's Anderson Economic Group is the name of it.
Okay.
And I listened to him give a talk on that topic. And he's basically like, hey, best case scenario, we're going to get to 35% as a country. Best case scenario.
Wow.
Average is probably going to be like 14%. And by 2035, he's like, it's an impossible task.
That's insane.
And yet here we are
Yeah.
pushing for these things. Like what kind of impact is that going to have on us?
Well, Ford, the CEO for Ford, took a road trip across country, and
Hopefully not in an electric vehicle.
it was in his one of their electric trucks that they're
Oh,
making.
yeah?
He said it was very difficult.
Right, because the thing about a combustible car, a gas-powered car, is you can refill that energy resource in less than 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Your electric car has to take how many hours to fill the battery back up?
So this is the journalist that you were talking about, Whitney Elise Webb.
Yeah, Whitney Webb. Yep. So I encourage anybody to go listen to her podcasts, her any conversation about her.
Is it the Coin Stories?
She talks. She does do a lot of. So she has a podcast too.
Okay.
And she talks a lot about Bitcoin and what's the general name? Cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And how that's impacted by some of these networks and the push for, like, the Fed is trying to, basically banks are trying to monopolize digital currency, and they're using the Fed to do it.
How are they doing that?
If the Fed has if the Fed or centralized banks have their own currency, how valuable is Bitcoin,
Right, that's
Dogecoin
true.
going to be?
Okay. So do they have their own?
They're creating it. They're in the middle of creating it. They just had a test run at the beginning of this year, I think it was a 12-week test run with the U.S. Fed and other centralized banks had a test run of, how will this work? So they're in the process of creating it. It'll go live, I'm guessing, in the next 3-5 years.
That's not good.
Right. Imagine, being able to deny your ability to purchase something because of some. Right. I mean, China has that ability already in their own country.
Yeah, if they don't it's like a social credit score. If they don't like what you say or they don't like what you do, you can't buy certain things.
Right. I mean, look at the GM, the general manager for the Houston Rockets, said something bad about China, and he got either fired or something like that just because he tweeted out something that was truthful about China, but China didn't like it.
That's crazy.
Like, that's the kind of power that a lot of these people have. And I didn't come here to talk about all this today, but there's a lot more behind the scenes than we want to admit, than we know about. And if we're not careful and don't do our own, reading and paying attention to some of those things, it's gonna hurt us in the long run.
Yeah. The problem is there's just so much to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And it's like you can get lost in the weeds trying to find the truth in everything.
Right. And at some point I more historically, like, I like to go back and look at, okay, well, this is how these things happen, like Epstein and, how some of these other things and bills got passed and, different things that happen. And you're like, oh, okay, now that makes sense.
Right.
Now apply some of that same stuff, like the JFK stuff that we're just finding out some of these things about.
Yeah.
It's my personal opinion. I think the CIA was involved. I have, just from things that I've read and found out.
RFK thinks the same thing.
Right. I could be way wrong. But there's a lot of smoke around it.
Right. I think they were involved in killing his dad too.
I believe that too. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And RFK, I think, is probably one of the best candidates that we could put in office in the presidency. Yeah. But again, they're not going to allow that. Right. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
So
do you think Biden can win again?
Oh man.
I mean, because
it depends on who's across the aisle.
Whether you like Biden or not, you have to realize that he's almost dead. That dude is not. He's barely making.
The whole country, I think, realizes that.
And oh my gosh,
here's a situation that I think is extremely difficult for us as the people. You're looking at a very likely a Trump-Biden runoff or Trump-Biden election again. Mm-hmm. Tell me how that's good for America.
It's not, because it's going to cause so much division. I was telling my wife this yesterday. Trump, when he was in office, I felt like he did a lot for the economy. I felt like the economy was booming. But the problem is again, we were talking about uniting people. We need the country needs to be united in some way, and we need somebody that's willing to do so. And after going and listening to RFK, I'm like, man, this guy seems normal. He seems like somebody who could unite the country. But he wants to also dismantle some of the the CIA and all these different organizations, FDA and all these other corrupt organizations. But I don't know. I don't know if, again, they're going to allow that to happen.
They're not. And I think for all of Trump's issues, I think he tried to do some of that as well.
Yeah. He did that with the FBI.
Did that. He definitely did it with the economy. He just went through and took out a bunch of red tape, and I think there was something like 2,100 pages of of laws or bills or whatever that he could, that as a president, it was policies that, you know, the way Congress works is they pass a law that's very general and then they give it to the agencies to come up with the specifics. So he went through and took out the specifics or redid the specifics on it and basically got rid of it within his power. Like 2,100 pages of it, right? Like you can do that. But some of those agencies, I just don't think, you know, they're so corrupt and so powerful, as Whitney Webb details in a lot of her stuff. And I think he ran into that. I mean, it's been proven the FBI was spying on him.
Yeah.
And the head of the FBI, James Comey, knew, it's been proven that he was given documentation saying that the file they used to spy on Trump's campaign they got it from the Australian intelligence agencies. Hey, this file that you're using is not a legit source. It's inaccurate. It's wrong. And he did not pass it on to the people that were doing the investigation. He withheld that information.
Wow. Wasn't he involved in the Jeffrey Epstein stuff?
Comey?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't.
Wasn't there was somebody that was involved from the FBI that
I don't know if it was him. He was the one that said in 2016 on the Hillary Clinton campaign, he's the one that got up and said, Hillary Clinton is guilty, but we're not going to prosecute her.
But they want to come after Trump.
We can go round and round on that one. Like I'm not a Trump fan, but there's a lot of inconsistencies on some things there.
Well, I mean, they're weaponizing the FBI, and that's something that Trump has talked a lot about, is the fact that they're using the FBI as a source, as their own police, essentially.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure the CIA is involved in some way. Whitney Webb tells a story, and this will give you an interesting kind of side bit. It's about Israel. The Mossad, that's Israel's intelligence arm. They had a software in the 80s or 90s. And there was some sort of event that happened in South America where a bunch of people were rounded up, taken out somewhere under the guise of, hey, we're taking you somewhere for work or something like that, and then they killed them all. Israel knew the names of those people before their own families knew that they were dead.
Wow.
Because there's some sort of tracking software that they had.
On the people?
On people in general.
Whoa. And
it's tied to Epstein because Epstein helped facilitate the sale of it or something like that years ago. Like the amount of conspiracies that are kind of becoming true right now, it's like there's some issues here. But yeah, right. So I'm not a big Trump fan, but I thought coming out of last year's election, the midterms, if you look at that, just about every candidate Trump supported lost. And you look at DeSantis in Florida, didn't take Trump support, did it on his own, did what I thought, from a Republican standpoint, at least he did it the right way from a Republican standpoint, and completely wiped out the opposition. Like, it was a mind-blowing how well he did. And I thought everybody would learn from that last year.
Yeah.
Nope. Trump, everybody still wants Trump, and I'm like, I've never seen it where people are clamoring for somebody that's just not that great of a human.
Well, I think he has like a following, right? Like, he has people that just Trump, like they're just Trumpers.
Yeah. Well, he's a narcissist. I firmly believe he's a narcissist. He
has to be.
Right. And what a narcissist is everything that I'm never wrong. Right. And so all he does is
I'm the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. So that's all he does. He goes out and he's like, I'm the greatest thing ever. I'm the best thing ever. Yep. And he hits it. He's gotten some things right when he's made some claims that turned out to be right. Yep. He's also made a lot of claims that turned out to be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, but nobody focuses on those. His followers don't focus on those. They focus on the ones that he got right. It's like, see, everything he says must be right. It's like, no.
I think it's because he's loud.
That's the other thing, is he's got that bully mentality of push you around. If you don't do what I say, then you're weak. You're weak. You're weak. How many times do you hear somebody say, I mean, people that worked for him, that he was like, oh, good human, good person. And then they leave and turn on him. He's like, oh, he's a bad person. I knew it all along. It's like, and everybody just goes with it, or his followers just go with it.
Right. Yeah, I like DeSantis. I mean, as far as a Republican, I think that, for one, what he did in Florida during COVID was awesome. It didn't shut the state down. People didn't like him for that, though. And then I like, he's educated. He is like when he gives a speech, it's well thought out. Like he's super intelligent. Isn't he a veteran?
Yes.
He's a veteran. I mean,
so yeah, there's a lot to like about him. And I think if it's DeSantis versus Biden, it's Biden doesn't stand a chance.
no.
So that's, I think, I honestly, if I were the Democrats, I think that's why Trump's doing well.
Yeah.
Because if I was a Democrat, I'd be pushing for Trump. Because if it's DeSantis, Nikki Haley, or even as a Ramaswamy, if it's one of those three people against Biden, I think they win. I don't think Biden stands a chance against those three.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But I think that's also why they're trying to pump up Gavin Newsom a little bit, just in case they have to run somebody besides Biden. But who knows? I mean, it's just a lot of this stuff behind the scenes. I can't 100% prove that this is what's going on, but it's like, this has got to be what's going on.
Right.
So, it's interesting. I hope it's not a Biden Trump scenario.
I hope not. I mean, because then we're just in the same position we were in 4 years ago.
Although I do think Trump would be better on the economy.
Yep,
but
for sure.
Be a lot of other issues. But RFK would be my number one choice, period.
That's probably who I'm going to vote for, honestly.
I might write him in.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be on the ballot.
No, you don't think so?
No.
He's coming out with an announcement tomorrow. And one thing that somebody was throwing around, I seen it somewhere. Somebody was saying that because Tulsi Gabbard was here in Michigan too yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm hoping.
I like her.
I like her a lot. I'm hoping they work together.
Oh, can you imagine
Tulsi
as RFK. A VP?
That'd be badass.
Oh, man.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah. I'd vote for them in a heartbeat.
Me too. I would have voted for Tulsi the last time.
Right.
But they pushed her out.
Yeah.
She's a Russian spy.
Oh, yeah.
I love politics. It gets people so worked up. When you start talking about this stuff, people are like, oh, you liberals or you right-wingers. They hate you for it.
It's because they're told that, the left says about the right that they hate all these people. The right says about the left that they hate knowledge and facts. And it's just like, it's all about throwing mud at the other side.
It really is.
It's not, politics is not about how good of a policy can I have. It's how bad can I make the other person look. If I make them look more bad than I look, then I win. So it's a race to the, least common denominator. I mean, you read our founding fathers and they understood it. That's why they set up the government this way.
Right. Yeah.
So, they understood politics is an ugly business and it's a cutthroat business and it's a greedy business.
Yeah.
So pit greed against greed.
Yeah.
That's why we have three branches of government. Like, hey, they kind of all play off of each other.
Yeah.
But, it's not perfect. And some of those things I think have been torn down. Some of those protections I think have been torn down. This is my personal opinion. I think the one thing that you can do, there's one thing that you could do that have the biggest impact immediately would be to repeal, I think it's the 17th Amendment, the one where we elect senators. The senators are elected by the majority vote of the people. That makes it more of a democracy. Democracies falter much more quickly than republics falter. And so if you have the state houses, again, elect senators from those states, you get better state representation. And it's not as easy to fool other people who are just like you,
right,
in your home state,
right,
that are also politicians.
Yep.
Where it's easy to fool 51% of the people. Not necessarily I'm not saying that's what everybody does, but hey, I just got to get 51% of the people to vote for me, so I'm just going to run these ads,
right,
make me look good and make my opponent look bad.
Yeah.
That's all I got to do. Whereas, hey, I have to win 51 votes in my state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're actually reading all the bills that I put forth. They know the process. They've seen what I've done.
Right.
That to me, I'd love to see that happen. It sounds antithetical to the situation, but I think it's something that would be helpful.
That was one thing. Alyssa Slotkin.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that she didn't live in Ingham County, but she was our representative.
They redistricted her And so there's something weird and fishy going on with that.
She had like an apartment here in Lansing,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't live here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, the gerrymandering. You look at the gerrymandering issues from.
Yeah.
And in some sense, you can understand it because populations don't fit in neat, square little boxes. But on the other hand, whoever's in power gets to draw the map.
Right. That's true.
So
politics is so messy, man.
It is.
It's so messy.
And it's ugly, which is why, in my opinion, you should have as little to deal with it as possible.
I know. I've had some politicians on the podcast, and every single time, like, I hate this. Like, I actually like talking to them because they're interesting. People need to, like, learn who they are. But I don't know, dude. It's just so divisive. People.
There was a study done 7 or 8 years ago. I'd have to go look it up. But the study basically found that, especially at the federal level, politicians have the same mental makeup as criminals.
That makes sense, though, because you look at a politician sometimes in their face, some of your bigger politicians.
Right.
Some of your local politicians, they're just regular people like us.
Exactly. That's what I say at the federal level. Like the Nancy Pelosi's, the McCarthy's, the
snake people.
Yeah. Who's the
the lizard people.
Yeah. Who's the Kentucky senator from Mitch McConnell's?
Yeah.
Like those guys.
You see that dude? He like just completely phased out.
I didn't know.
Oh my gosh. He was doing an interview, and yeah, he just, like, I don't know.
Pulled a Biden?
Yeah, he pulled a Biden. Just completely forgot what he was talking about and sat there for, it was a long time. And then they finally grabbed him and pulled him away.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's just, it's disheartening.
It really is.
But the positive side is that I used to think that you could go into politics and make a difference. I don't think that's really true, but you can make a difference in your own community just by being help, smiling, saying hi to people, being friendly, getting involved,
doing things in the community, serving your community, even at a local level. If you decide that, let's say you want to be city councilman or something, like, you can still make a positive change.
Yes.
I mean, you're
limited as to what kind of impact that has.
Right.
But our DeWitt treasurer just got, is under investigation for embezzlement.
Oh my gosh, that's so common in the political realm.
Mm-hmm.
What was he embezzling? I mean,
funds, money
from the city.
From the city.
Wow.
It was a she.
Oh, she.
Yeah. So she just got either arrested or put under fired with leave or something like that a couple weeks ago. Kind of like the Mel Tucker thing where they gotta put you on leave until the investigation's finalized, and they can officially fire you, kind of thing.
Right.
So we're in the process of all that. But I think it was the state police that showed up at her office, escorted her out.
Wow. Why do people think they can get away with that?
I don't think they think about getting away with it. I think they see. Here's something I've learned about people in general, and this is kind of goes towards, like, how should your thought process be? We have very immediate mindsets. What makes me happy today? What do I need to do? What can I do today to feel better?
Instant gratification.
Right. So it's like, well, I'll take some money here so I can go on a trip. That sounds good. They don't think about what's that going to make me look like, or how's that going to impact me a year from now? Well, you're gonna be sitting in jail in an orange jumpsuit. Sorry. Or, like football. Hey, let's get practice today. Well, how's it going to impact you on Wednesday when it's time for a game?
Right.
Those kind of things.
Yeah.
I think people are more concerned about how do I feel right now, and how do I improve how I feel right now. They don't think about the consequences.
I mean, and that goes back to mindset. That goes back to, like, what is your mindset? What is your motive? Why are you doing what you're doing? And how can you be satisfied with what you have?
Right.
That's through mindset.
And what do I need? What can I do? What can I do to build something great that where 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'm sitting there thankful that I put in all the work and did all these things. And I'm in a great spot. I have that vision of where I want to be, and I'm there now.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily a spot, because, like, everybody thinks about, like, a destination. It's not necessarily a destination. it's constant improvement, constantly changing, and your goals are constantly changing. Because once you get to that spot, then what? Then you got to have something else. Otherwise, you're back in the same mental spot you were in before.
Mm-hmm.
So you're constantly evolving.
Right. Well, you should be.
You should be.
Sometimes you don't.
Some people don't.
I hit that just in full vulnerability. I hit that a few years ago. I bought a house, and I was like, wow, that was like the last part of my vision for like several years as I was building my business. And I'm like, well, now what? Then all of a sudden, then it's like, I don't have to. I really don't feel like getting out of bed today, or I'll do that later.
Right.
You lose that edge of, hey, let's do that next thing so I can have that vision. So I had to go back to the drawing board and be like, all right, what's the next vision? What's on my list for what do I need to redo my vision for and improve for the future?
Right.
So it's I think it's super important to have that vision and keep adapting it as you go through and accomplish things.
Absolutely. Goal setting is important. And that's something that I try to do regularly is journal, because then when you journal, you can take note of like the goals that you have, where you want to be and how you're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get to that point, then you just continue going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if it's small goals, like I'm going to do this today and then tomorrow I'm going to do that and then this and then that. You just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually a week or 2 weeks or a month or a year, you look back and you're like, dang, I went so far.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about starting a business earlier, and what does it take to get a business off the ground? Okay, here's what it takes. Do this today, that tomorrow. Right. Eventually, hopefully have a really successful business, however you define that success.
Right. Yeah.
So,
dude, this is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're 51 minutes in. It's 2:02.
Oh, wow, that went fast.
Always does.
It does.
Yeah.
How's your brother?
William, he's doing good. He just moved
to Indiana.
He's honestly, I don't really know what his position is. He's like going to be serving at a church as like a youth director or something like that.
Okay.
They have like some sort of network for their like ministry, like streaming, or they're trying to. So from what he described, it's supposed to be something like what the Daily Wire is, but like Christian version.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I want to give Will a big shout out.
Yeah.
I've been following him ever since you introduced us, which is kind of interesting. We did go to the same college, which on our last podcast, I hadn't revealed the name or anything, but we did it. Yeah. He did go to my college. He lasted one semester. I was there 22 years. But Will, if you're listening, I've been following him and got to interact with him on his page, and I love following. You talk about learning and being respectful and impactful. His page, the Church Split on Facebook, etc. I've enjoyed just watching people interact. Have tons of people with completely opposite views on there interact with each other in a very respectful and helpful way. Nothing but help in there. And if I've been watching Will and just kind of the decision making and the vulnerability he's had on what's going on in his world and some of the stuff he shared, and boy, I've just been very impressed with his decision making and how he's done it. And I feel like, Will, if you have made the decisions the way you're supposed to make decisions. So, man, I just want to give Will a shout out there. I know he doesn't get the love that he probably deserves, except for maybe from his wife, hopefully. But
no, that's so awesome to hear, and I'm glad that like that connection was able to be made.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about going on his podcast?
I'd be happy to go on his podcast. You know me, I'm happy to talk anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Unfortunately, I think it would have to be done virtually,
That's
but
fine.
still, that'd be cool.
If he wants me to, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think he would. I think he would do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of the stuff that I've heard from, like he took in, I think, a couple of guys from a church up north.
Yep.
And I'm very familiar with that church.
Oh, really?
And kind of some of that situation and the connections to Lansing. I don't know if you know, there's a connection to Lansing.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Yeah, that pastor is the grandson of a pastor in Lansing that started
a church that's right around the corner, right?
Church that's right around the corner. Some of those members go to my church now.
Oh boy.
But no, it's a good thing.
Can you explain that situation without like naming people?
What part of that situation?
Because there was like, I guess I don't remember all of what had happened, but there was a pastor that wasn't he like sexually molesting people or something like that? Or they
No,
were doing
that's a different one.
okay.
So the one that where your brother took in a couple of boys, they were thrown out of a church because they didn't believe that the King James Bible was the inspired word of God. They thought it was just a translation from the inspired word of God, which is it's a small, seems like a small difference, but it's a major theological difference
To them.
to just period. Like if you think that the King James Bible is the inspired word of God, that means all the old texts that traditionally people believe were inspired are now null and void, and this is now the accurate, inspired, God breathed word of God.
So they kicked them out for that?
Well, they started questioning it with their pastor, and the pastor basically was like, we're can't believe differently. This is so we're kicking you out of the church.
Wow.
So just it's a travesty.
And then there was a tie with a pastor here.
Yeah, so that the pastor of that church up there is the grandson of a pastor down here.
Okay.
So there's a church that was started in Lansing here years and years and years and years and years ago. And it was one of those old independent fundamental Baptist churches that had a heyday in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Christian school, print ministry, like you name it. They were really popular. And then that guy, so he had a son that started a church or took over a church in Charlevoix. When the grandfather started getting health issues, the son came from Charlevoix down to take over the Lansing church, and he put the grandson, when he left there, his son, in charge of the church up in Charlevoix.
Okay.
And that's the guy that kicked these kids out because they weren't King James only people.
So do they believe that down here too at this church?
I have no idea. Probably.
Yeah.
They're also, well, maybe I shouldn't make a claim that I haven't verifiable proof from, but it's not just say they have some very prejudiced views, especially on towards races of people.
I think that's what I had heard because one of the boys that my brother took in was black, and I think he was from Lansing.
Interesting. I don't know how you prove that in the Bible, but yeah, it's crazy. You can. So this is the thing that I have with people. Some people are like, "Well, the Bible, Bible's used for terrible things," and this is the absolute truth.
It's weaponized,
right? Like just like politics, it's people use the Bible to manipulate people all the time,
right?
But at the end of the day, I do still believe that the Bible is God's word. It's a love letter to us to help us understand the world better and make better decisions.
Yeah,
and to know Him better. So you got to read it in context,
right?
And you can't, but you can't come up with your own interpretations.
And you could definitely get lost in the weeds too.
Yep.
Like I had these people on yesterday who her husband was a pastor at a church in Lansing, and then she's obviously a pastor's wife. And like you come from the same kind of church that I grew up in, fundamental Baptist. If you're divorced, can't be a pastor or whatever. This dude is divorced and he's a pastor. But the thing is, he's like, I just want to preach love. Like people just need to, accept each other and not cause that divide over the small things, the things that don't really matter.
Right. And I think that Jesus even said that, the whole law, the whole Bible it hangs on two things: care about God, love God, and care about others. So, it doesn't really matter whether or not, it doesn't matter my opinion on somebody if I don't care about that person at the same time. Now, I can disagree with them and care about them, but it's all about how you approach that. And I'm just tired of people treating each other like crap.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I disagree with you. Okay, all right, cool. Let's still be friends, or let's we'll be amicable.
Right. But
I'm not going to hate you. It's like, why waste my energy on that?
It's not necessary.
It just makes my life, I taught today in my class on forgiveness. I'm like, forgiveness, Jesus told us to forgive. Forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's for us. So that we don't go around having hate and hard hearts.
Yeah. That was one thing. And we can wrap it up because I know you got to go. But, about my past and my adopted mom. She was just terrible. But like one thing people would always say to me, like, how could you forgive her? How could you just like move on like that? But the thing is, like, when you hold that grudge and you hold that you hold that against somebody, it only affects you.
Right.
It affects your success. It affects your ambition. It affects everything. Like it's crippling. It's crippling to have that anger and to have just to hold that amount of animosity towards somebody. And by me letting go, and I never told her that I forgave her, I don't think. But like in my heart, I don't hold anything against her because it won't serve me.
Right.
And that's important.
I agree 100%. I think forgiveness is also misunderstood. Forgiveness is all about, what do you owe me? You owe me nothing, right? It's not, oh, I got to be best friends with you. Oh, I got to say hi to you every time I see you, or any of that. Forgiveness just means you don't, in my heart, you owe me nothing. You don't owe me an apology. I'll take it if you give it to me, but you don't owe me an apology. You don't owe me money. You don't owe me a letter. You don't owe me a speech in front of everybody, a public apology. Right. You owe me nothing, and I'm going to continue my life that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. I love it.
So,
David, thanks for doing the podcast. It was a lot of fun.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah, we should hang out outside.
Yeah, definitely. We'll drink some whiskey or something.
Can't admit that on air.
Well, if you don't drink, it's fine. I drink.
All right.
So, all right. Well, thanks for doing the podcast, and look forward to doing it again.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll see you.
See you.